The other type of costs that contribute to total costs is variable costs. In this video, you will learn the definition of variable costs, the process of calculating variable costs using the formula variable cost is equal to total cost minus fixed cost, and 3, interpret the variable cost graph. Variable costs, sometimes abbreviated VC, are the costs that the firm incurs when it actually produces output. As the amount of inputs, like labor, are used by the firm increases, the variable costs will also increase. For example, the wage rate for a worker is $25 per hour. So one worker will cost the firm $25, 2 workers will cost the firm $50 an hour. The formula for calculating the variable cost is total cost minus fixed cost, or VC is equal to TC minus FC. Here is a table with the printer manufacturer's cost. You may wish to print a copy of the table from the website to help you follow along. The first column represents the amount of output or of production. The second column represents the fixed costs of the printer manufacturer. The examples of fixed costs is a mortgage payment, which the owner of the factory must make each month regardless of how much they produce. Notice this column has fixed costs calculated from another video on fixed costs. The third column represents the variable costs, which is going to be labor in our case. The fourth column represents the total cost of manufacturing printers. Let's look at the first 3 rows of the output in more detail to learn how to calculate the variable costs. The formula for calculating the variable cost is total cost minus fixed cost. So to calculate the variable cost, we will need to use the data from the total cost column and the fixed cost column. Let's start by calculating the variable cost when the production is 0. First, let's locate the total cost column in the table and the total cost in the formula. Notice that the total cost of producing 0 printers is $10. Next, substitute in $10 for the total cost into the formula. Next, locate the fixed cost column in the table and in the formula. Notice that the fixed cost is $10 when the company produces 0 printers. Next, substitute $10 into the formula for the fixed cost. Subtracting $10 from $10 gives $0. Well, it may appear this actually doesn't make sense. It does in fact make sense because the firm has not used any inputs. In our case of the printer factory, has not employed any labor. Since the firm has not used any inputs or employed any labor, there can be no variable costs. Next, let's transfer our answer to the first row of the variable cost column. Next, move down to the second row of numbers. Here, the firm will hire 1 unit of inputs, or 1 worker. Locate the total cost column in the table and the total cost in the formula. If we look down the total cost column to the second row of numbers, the total costs associated with the 2 units of inputs is 15. Substitute 15 in the formula for total cost. Locate the fixed cost column on the table and locate the fixed cost in the formula. Next, substitute 10 into the formula. Next, subtract 10 from 15. Giving $5. Now put $5 into the variable cost column and let's look at one more calculation of the variable costs. Locate the total cost column in the table and the total cost in the formula. Notice that 18 is the total cost when the firm uses 2 units of inputs or employs 2 workers. Substitute 18 into the formula for total cost. Next, locate the fixed cost in the table and in the formula. Notice that the fixed cost is $10 when the firm uses 2 units of inputs or employs 2 workers. Substitute 10 into the formula for the fixed cost. Next, subtract 10 from 18, giving 8. Next, put $8 into the third row of numbers in the variable costs column. If you haven't printed out the table, you might want to do it now. After printing the table, pause the video and see if you can calculate the remaining variable costs for the firm. If you're having trouble, rewind the video and review the procedure. After you've finished the calculations, move on to the next section to see the answers. You might want to pause the video while you look at the answers. Before discussing the particular features of the graph of variable costs, let's take a minute to understand the structure of the graph. The horizontal axis represents total production or output. Total production or output increases as you move from left to right. The vertical axis or the y-axis represents variable costs or total variable costs. Variable costs increase as one moves from the bottom toward the top. Looking at the graph of variable costs, it's rather obvious that the variable costs increase with the amount of the good being produced. The reason that variable costs increase with the production is that the firm must buy more inputs to increase production of the good. So in our example, the firm must increase the amount of labor that it employs in order to produce more printers. Thus, its variable costs will increase as it goes along.